They were eating late in the mess hall, hours after the last enemy outpost on Malaris 9 had finally gone quiet. The Joint Task Force, an uneasy blend of humans, Vex, Gathi, Takari, and Silverite, sat scattered around battered tables, still in half-armored gear, talking softly and passing around bits of whatever they called comfort food. The air stank of sweat, old rations, and sterilizing foam. Most of the alien soldiers were slouched, tired but relieved, showing off fresh scars and trading stories about things they'd seen or survived. On the far end, the only human in the room sat by himself, quiet, cleaning his knife with a strip of meal pack foil. Dust still clung to his armor in stubborn streaks. He moved with careful, practiced economy. No wasted effort, no small talk. The Vex, always looking for amusement, noticed him first. A young one, emboldened by victory and the buzz of hot stone liquor, raised a smirk and called out across the table, "Hey, human, what's your kill count?" It was supposed to be a joke, maybe even a dare. The room hushed a little, forks pausing midair. The human didn't laugh or even look annoyed. Instead, he just looked up, wiped his blade one last time, and asked, calm as the dead planet outside, "We're counting all of them." Nobody smiled after that. His name was Cole Warner, Earth Command Forces Sergeant, not listed under any of the elite units, but his uniform bore clearance tags most in the room couldn't identify. In any other setting, he looked forgettable. Average height, lean, buzz-cut hair, a plain, neutral stare. You could pass him in the street and not notice him at all. Here, though, no one was missing a detail. One of the Takari pilots set his mug down gently, eyes sharp. "You mean you keep track?" Cole blinked, as if the question itself was the odd part, then shrugged. "Some of it's logged, some isn't. Depends on who was running comms that day. You want the official number or mine?" The Vrex soldier's crest, which had been puffed in amusement, slowly lowered as curiosity took over. "Start with this planet." Cole nodded once, reached into a vest pocket, and slid out a battered notepad, its corners sweat softened. He flipped through the pages with fingers rough and calloused. Malaris 9, 38 confirmed inside the comm silo on day 1, 7 in the canyon ambush, 9 on the ridge 2 days ago, 16 at the refinery compound, though 2 might have bled out after evac, 5 more in the tunnel breach. He stopped, tallying something in his head. 75 confirmed, 8 probable, 5 indirect from explosive injuries after the breach. No one spoke. You could hear the electrical hum in the ceiling. A Gathi medical officer, his brows ridged and severe, broke the silence. "That's in 9 days?" "Yeah." "And you're certain?" Cole nodded, tapping the notepad once before tucking it away. "I count. Always have. Helps me remember who didn't make it." One of the younger recruits, a Silverite knight with a scorched shoulder plate, leaned forward, voice hushed. "What about total? You said all planets." Cole rested his arms on the table, glancing around as if looking for permission. Seeing none objected, he shrugged. "Started on Avel 2. 16 confirmed. First drop was recon. Supposed to be no contact, but they weren't expecting us. That got ugly quick." He continued. Names of planets and battles rolled out, some that made the aliens' eyes narrow with confusion. Egrius Delta, 56, mostly hand-to-hand. That was a bad drop. Everyone else burned up in the transport. No air support. They kept coming for 2 days straight. Vis Crater, 31. Half of them were trained insurgents. The rest, it didn't matter. We cleared the outpost, lost a lot of kids. Nelson's Spire. Just me and Ortega. She got clipped early. Sniper fire. I clear the rest. 8 confirmed. 3 more fell from the tower, but no bodies to verify. By the time Cole reached the 5th planet, plates were forgotten and food was cold. Across the hall, one of the senior Vex captains exhaled slow and heavy. "These records were never disclosed to Joint Command," he said to his aide, suspicion hardening his voice. "They weren't," the aide replied, already tapping frantically at his datapad. but some of the place names match old conflict zones. Either he's making it up or he stopped, eyes wide. The database wasn't denying the logs. Redacted, yes, but present. Mission dates lined up. Casualty reports matched. Human presence, single name, S. Warner. A Silverite gunner finally asked, breaking the tension. So, how many, including Malaris? Cole scratched his jaw, doing the math in his head. 237 confirmed. About 30 I couldn't verify. Plus indirects, probably around 50. It landed like a dropped weight. One of the alien medics, voice dry and tight, pressed further. And that's over how many years? Cole blinked, thinking. 8 years active. 14 if you count reserves and private security. Someone muttered a curse in a tongue not covered by the hall's comm unit. It might have ended there, an uncomfortable silence settling back over half-finished meals, if not for Major Durfk, operations chief from Gathy Command. He stepped forward from the officer's table, hands folded behind his back. You said Nelson Spire. That zone was classified as a total loss. 100% force loss. You walked away. Cole nodded. Walked might be generous. Took a few weeks in rehab. Got clipped in the lower back. Had to relearn my gait. T12 fracture, neural bruising, mild foot drop. He recited it like he was listing repair specs. The medic who'd spoken earlier gave a knowing nod. 12 weeks, minimum recovery. Cole replied, 9, with PT twice a day. They kept me on light duty, but I couldn't stand sitting around. A tall insectal officer, whose name none of the humans could pronounce, finally asked, You are not special forces. Cole shook his head. No, just infantry. Earth sends whoever's available. Then how? He just looked at the alien, quiet and steady. I follow orders. Sometimes the order is to finish the fight. Nobody asked about his knife again. No one else told war stories that night. But something had shifted, not with orders or protocols, but with atmosphere, a drop in temperature only the oldest soldiers recognized. Conversations paused when Cole entered a room. Patrol assignments were shuffled, so nobody else had to take point if he was there. The Vex, usually brash, got quieter in his presence. Cole himself didn't seem to notice. He ran drills, checked his gear, ate tasteless rations, kept the same jog cadence, nodded to officers, and asked for nothing. That, more than his numbers, made everyone uneasy. Behind the scenes, the Gathy intelligence wing started digging. The day after, their archivist Yelverin formally requested coalition combat records, a courtesy during joint ops, but now with a sharper edge. She cross-referenced every planet and date Cole had listed. Some records were behind Earth's legendary TAN encryption, locked under Directive 12. But enough got through to reveal a pattern. She pulled up Malaris 9, confirmed. Avel 2. Enemy fortifications held off Allied forces for weeks, then cleared in 72 hours after human insertion. This crater, insurgent network wiped out in one night. Official Earth reports cited high-efficiency conflict resolution tactics. Egrius Delta, presumed failure, until atmospheric scans found 72 fresh graves around a human emergency shelter, the only Terran heat signature, Warner. Nelson Spire, single survivor, extracted condition, recovering. Attached encrypted notes, T12 fracture, ligament rupture, slow gait, no signs of post-traumatic stress. Yelverin leaned back from her console, whispering, he wasn't sent to fight wars. He was sent to end them. By week's end, Cole's name popped up in 24 strategic briefings. Sylvanite Fleet Admiral demanded Earth's policy on tactical deployment. Takari ambassador pressed for a review of infantry training. Nobody spoke openly, but one question simmered. How many more like him were there? Whispers circulated through back channels and comms. The answer was maybe thousands. Not elite, not enhanced, just standard humans. Conditioned by gravity, war, and desperation. A species that made predators with forward-facing eyes and a culture that valued resilience over victory. Dirk, the Gathy operations chief, found Cole by the wreckage of a downed dropship. Cole was methodically checking magnetic locks on a storage crate. "You weren't trained for this," Dirk said. Cole didn't look up. "Not for most of it, no. Yet you survived." "I adapt." Dirk narrowed his 4 eyes. "Do you regret it?" Cole finally glanced up. His face didn't harden or soften. "Regret doesn't change what happened. But I remember." He tapped his temple. "Names. Faces. The ones we lost. I don't forget them." Not the answer Dirk wanted, but the only one he got. 3 days later, an internal incident report landed on the Alien Command Council's desk. A Rex recon unit had gone missing during a mine sweep. 40 minutes of panic on comms, then silence. Cole read the transmission log, folded it, stood up. "No one's deploying," Dirk told him. "That area's reclassified as hostile. Evac's been pulled." "I wasn't asking," Cole replied. He left with a medkit, 2 charge packs, and a wrist drone. 12 hours later, he returned, dragging a wounded Rex over his shoulder, another limping beside him. He said nothing, dropped them at the aid station, pulled glass from his thigh, swabbed the blood, and asked if Chow was still open. The medic confirmed the wound had missed a major artery by 4 centimeters. Cole had stitched it himself with sterile strips and glue. First-degree burns on his left boot, chemical contact. He hadn't mentioned it. The doctor peeled the sock off 3 hours later. Cole hadn't limped. Rumors moved faster than truth. By morning, the Capital Outpost had a new legend. Earth didn't send a man, it sent a weapon. And the weapon never asked permission. Coalition Command took notice. 2 weeks later, a delegate was dispatched to the forward base, supposedly for a field assessment, but everyone knew he was there to see Cole. He was an older man, polite in that worn-down, civilian way that comes from too many years behind a desk. His badge read, L. Miles, Civilian Oversight, Earth Military Council. He found Cole in the motor pool, alone, sitting cross-legged among dismantled weapons. Cole was cleaning out a pulse rifle, so scorched it looked like a relic from another age. He didn't look up as Miles approached, didn't stop what he was doing. "I've read your deployment logs," Miles started after a few moments, clipboard in hand. "Even the redacted ones." Cole didn't glance over. "You get bored easily?" Miles gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Just curious. We don't usually send regular infantry to 37 independent combat zones. Some weren't even declared conflicts." Cole inserted the firing mechanism with a precise click, not rushing, not delaying. "Didn't know this was a math quiz." Miles tried again. "You know what I mean. Why does Earth Command keep sliding your file across the desk every time a new red zone pops up? Why do they send you in, and then everything goes quiet?" For the first time, Cole looked up. His eyes were neither cold nor inviting, just steady, weighing. "I show up, I do my job, I walk out if I can. What happens between drop and evac isn't about stories. It's about doing what needs to be done, even if it costs." Miles's grip tightened on his clipboard. "What cost? Yours or theirs?" Cole just stared at him. He didn't need to answer. That night, Miles filed his report, not as a security risk, but as an ethical flag. In it, he wrote, he doesn't see himself as special. That's what's terrifying. He thinks every soldier from Earth would do the same. If he's right, we've misunderstood the species completely. Meanwhile, high above Malaris 9, the Silverite fleet held a closed-door session. Admiral Vekin, polished armor gleaming under cold lights, broadcast Cole Warner's file across the room. Deployments, injuries, combat duration, confirmed kills, an entire dossier, minus the redacted sections. "The human unit has demonstrated effectiveness well beyond baseline infantry," Vekin said, voice even. "Earth Command's transparency appears questionable." One officer muttered, "Could be enhancements. Black Project tech. Suppress cybernetics." But Vekin shook his head, frowning. "Too consistent. Too organic. This is standard for them." The room fell silent. Nobody liked what that meant. On the ground, the Coalition Command Center at Outpost 11 received a distress signal. A Gathi civilian convoy had been ambushed during evacuation, pinned down in Ravik Valley, a narrow, unstable stretch of canyons and choke points. Attackers had the high ground. Hostile numbers were climbing. Cole had been scheduled for routine gear recertification that day. Instead, he loaded a mobility rig, grabbed 2 satchels, and requested one thing: a working comm unit and drone access. He launched before formal clearance arrived. 7 hours later, Gathi monitors picked up a cascade of encrypted human comm bursts, 13, spaced in rapid intervals. Each signal corresponded to a convoy member, all accounted for alive but injured. Enemy resistance had collapsed before rescue arrived. 3 attackers were still breathing, dazed and silent. A single survivor, trembling, was heard saying, "The Earthman wasn't a soldier. He was the dark between the stars." Cole didn't say much when he came back. Medics found 2 broken fingers and a mild concussion. He'd already splinted his own hand, waved off help, and only agreed to scans when a lieutenant threatened to ground him. He walked back to the barracks, slept for 2 hours, and showed up for patrol the next morning. When asked why he didn't take his downtime, Cole shrugged. "I already had breakfast." The story spread. That same week, a new alien cadet, curious and naive, found him in a mess. "Do all humans fight like you?" she asked, hesitant. Cole looked up from his tray. "Most fight better. I just keep showing up." That line ended up in 3 coalition training briefings before sunset. Command attitudes changed. Sylvanite War doctrine quietly drafted human intervention thresholds. Gareth the Ground Ops added Cole's name to their force multiplier simulations. The Takari ambassador, once skeptical of Earth's value, now lobbied for cross-training with human infantry. But the most telling request came from Admiral Vekin. Request: combat rotation exchange. Purpose: observe human deployment firsthand. Objective: determine if Sergeant Warner is representative of a standard military profile. Earth Command replied in hours. Denied. No explanation. 3 words stamped in red, classified by design. Cole never saw those reports. He kept his head down, did maintenance, filed injury logs, passed psychological evals with nothing flagged. No discipline, no medals, no commendations. He was a ghost in the machine. At the edge of camp, just past the comms tower, a Silverite sniper watched Cole finish a jog. She whispered to her spotter, "I don't think he fears death." The spotter just shook his head. "No, I think he's already met it," and made it leave. The ceasefire, when it came, arrived without celebration. No parades, no triumphant banners, just a series of dull, blinking alerts through the coalition grid. The last enemy cells on Malaris 9 surrendered without a final stand. No posturing, no desperation. Some said the war ended not because the enemy lost, but because there was nowhere left to hide. Afterward, command moved quickly. Tents became offices. Barracks turned into peacekeeping dorms. Civilians returned in small waves. Debriefing protocols began. Cole was called in last. The interview room was spare. 2 chairs, a table, a glass of water. Across from him sat Commander Island Vok, coalition oversight, tall, sharp-eyed, all edges. "Sergeant Warner," Vok began, "your deployment log from Malaris 9 lists 75 confirmed enemy casualties, including all 6 strike leaders. No civilian deaths. Minimal infrastructure damage. Efficient by every measure." Cole said nothing. Vok continued, "Your field notes show no backup requests. You refused medical extraction after sustaining lacerations, blunt trauma, burns. You chose to go solo during Ravik Valley." Cole cut in, voice flat. "There wasn't time to debate it." "That's not the issue, Sergeant." "Then what is?" Vok's hands nodded. "The issue is you're treated like an asset, a strategic piece, not a man. The coalition isn't built for that. We have elite units, yes, but not one man making entire battlefields go silent." Cole didn't blink. I didn't ask for any of that. No, Vok agreed. But now they watch you, the other species, the joint commanders, even our civilians. Earth's infantry is a myth now. You're the story they tell. He slid a data slate across the table. On it, field reports, rumors, snippets of dialogue from the front. He moved like the firefight didn't matter. He stitched himself up, then cleared the entire trench. They say Earth doesn't breed soldiers. It breeds survivors who know how to kill. Cole thumbed through the slate. Set it aside. I'm not proud of any of that. Vok looked at him. Then what are you? Cole was quiet for a moment. Tired. A long pause. Then Vok said, You're being rotated out. Reassigned to Earth. Council vote. Effective immediately. Cole nodded once. No protest. No relief. Do I get a replacement? We're not sending anyone else, Vok said. There's no one to send. That night, before departure, Cole walked the outpost perimeter one last time. The camp was quiet now. No alarms, just the wind cutting between battered towers and static from the comms lines. Overhead, lights flickered, half still broken. A knot of alien soldiers gathered near the east tower, watching him go. No one saluted, but every single one stepped aside. In the shuttle bay, Cole surrendered his gear, rifle, medkit, sidearm, the same standard issue knife he'd carried since his first drop. Each item was tagged and locked away. The quartermaster, a nervous young human, checked his checklist twice. That's everything. Cole tapped his thigh. Still got the scar? Keep the rest. She nodded, eyes wide. He boarded the shuttle without fanfare. No speeches, no send-off. The launch was smooth, a clean arc through dusty sky, breaking into orbit as the first stars blinked above the horizon. In the co-pilot's seat, an alien liaison officer read through his manifest. You logged 34 solo deployments in 9 years. That's unprecedented. You're the most experienced field unit in this sector. Cole stared out at the black curve of space. I'm not a unit. I'm just a man who showed up when things got ugly. The officer frowned. But why so many times? Cole turned quietly. Every time I walked off a battlefield, someone else didn't. I kept going so maybe the next time, someone else could stop. The alien opened his mouth, then closed it again. Earth didn't welcome Cole home with banners. There were no medals, no press. He landed at a civilian terminal, bags in hand, just another returning contractor. He walked out into cold wind and dusk. He found a small apartment outside Reno. Nothing fancy, just clean floors, hot water, and a chair that didn't creak. On Saturdays, he walked by the lake at dawn, watched runners pass, and wondered how many had even heard of Malaris 9. When he checked in at a local clinic for a persistent limp, the nurse read his chart and blinked. You had a femoral strain with burn blistering? No nerve damage, but that must have hurt. Cole nodded. She scanned further. Self-treated in the field? He shrugged. Didn't have much choice. She paused, then quietly wrote a referral for physical therapy. Thursdays, if he wanted it. Months later, Cole sat at a cafe, sun going down, coffee warm in his hands. A boy walked past, maybe 12, wearing a toy vest, plastic rifle slung over his shoulder. He spotted the faded Earth Command patch on Cole's jacket. You a real soldier? The boy asked. Cole looked down at his cup, then back at the kid. I was. The boy grinned. Did you ever shoot aliens? Cole hesitated. I hope not again. The boy blinked, confused, but before he could ask more, his mother called him away. He ran off, footsteps echoing against the sidewalk. Cole sipped his coffee and, for the first time in years, realized the wind didn't sound like screaming. Far from Earth, the machinery of the coalition kept churning. On a diplomatic transport between sectors, 2 alien officers sat hunched over a new assignment packet from Earth. The Gathy captain, all mandibles and dry wit, slid a data slate across the table. Earth's sending another Marine for joint exercises, he said, antennae twitching with something like anticipation. This one's not the same. Different file. Looks clean. Let's see what happens when we ask the question. His Sylvanite colleague grinned. plated fingers drumming on the tabletop. Let's see what this one says when we ask, "What's your kill count?" The moment played out almost the same. In the newly arrived human's first mess hall meal, after a day of drills and introductions, a wrecked soldier, half teasing, half testing, leaned in and asked, "So, human, what's your kill count?" The new Marine blinked, confused, and responded, "You mean this quadrant, or everywhere?" The table fell silent. Some of the old hands glanced at each other, remembering Cole Warner, the myth who'd moved like a shadow through battlefields and left behind nothing but stories and quiet. The Coalition learned something in the years after Malaris 9. Commanders stopped looking for heroes or legends. They started asking for the right kind of people, those who survived because they couldn't let others fall. Tactics shifted. Doctrine changed. Earth's infantry was no longer an anomaly or an unknown. It was a force you planned for, a variable you factored in, even when there was no data to back it up. Every new deployment came with a question mark. Was this the one? Another Warner? Someone who'd fight because he didn't know how to quit. Someone whose scars didn't make him brittle, but resilient. Back in Reno, Cole tried to make peace with the civilian world. It wasn't always easy. The city was full of ordinary distractions. Grocery stores, late-night traffic, people arguing over parking spaces, also laughably far from the kill zones and shattered outposts he remembered. Sometimes he'd wake up in the small hours and not know where he was, expecting alarms or sirens or the metallic taste of adrenaline. But the only sound was the low hum of the fridge and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Some nights, he'd sit on his balcony, legs propped on the rail, and stare up at the stars. He wondered which ones he'd fought under, which ones he'd bled on. He didn't keep the notepad anymore. Those numbers were for a different life, but he remembered every face, every name. The ones he couldn't save haunted him in quieter, more familiar ways. He met other veterans at the clinic. They nodded at each other, silent understanding passing in the space of a glance. Once in a while, he'd see the twitch of a jaw, the careful scan of exits, the way a hand would hover near an old wound. Cole never said much, but he listened. Sometimes that was enough. He tried to keep his world small. Mornings were for walking the lake, afternoons for odd jobs, evenings for reading, or on rare occasions, a cold beer at the corner bar. The bartender knew to leave him alone when his eyes got that distant look. Still, life outside the war crept back in, slow and persistent. The world didn't stop spinning just because he'd come home different. On a bright spring morning, Cole was fixing his fence when an old friend from Earth Command stopped by. Lieutenant Marquez, who'd served with him on Vis Crater, stepped out of a borrowed truck with 2 coffees in hand. She looked older, a streak of gray at her temples, but her posture was the same, military to the core. They sat in the yard, watching the sunrise, neither rushing to fill the silence. "I heard about the council decision," Marquez finally said, voice low. "You really done?" Cole took a slow sip. "I'm out. For good this time." She nodded. "You should know. Your file's a training case now. They run it in simulations. Kids study how you handled Ravik Valley, Nelson Spire, the refinery breach. Some of the brass wanted to bury it, but it got out." Cole snorted. "Not much to study. I just kept moving." Marquez gave him a tired smile. "That's what scares them, you know. You weren't supposed to survive, let alone keep winning. They can't predict it. They want to, but they can't." They sat in comfortable silence until Marquez finished her coffee. Before leaving, she turned to him. "You ever think about teaching?" Cole shook his head. "I'm not sure I have much to teach." "That's not true," she said. "You do. Maybe not tactics or doctrine, but the way you see people, the way you remember. That matters." After she left, Cole stared at his hands, remembering every callus, every scar. Maybe one day he'd take her up on it. But for now, the quiet suited him. Back on the Coalition front, the lessons of Malaris 9 left their mark. War didn't stop. New conflicts sparked on far-off moons and barren planets. But every new joint operation had one more line in the protocol, A silent contingency for what to do if the human assigned to your squad seemed a little too calm, a little too efficient, a little too unwilling to quit. The story of Cole Warner faded into rumor, then legend. Some said he was a myth, a fabrication. Others swore they'd served with him, seen the look in his eyes when things went dark. Most didn't know what to believe. But among the veterans, the medics, the ones who understood that the numbers on a notepad were more than just statistics, Cole was real enough. He was the answer to the unspoken question: how far could a single person go when everything else was stripped away? And for those who'd faced the darkness, that was enough. Some nights, the radio played static from distant stars, and Cole would listen in his little apartment, wondering if anyone else was awake. On those nights, he didn't feel like a weapon or a myth or a story told at the edge of a mess hall table. He was just a man, breathing, alive, and for the first time in a long time, free.